talked decision making. Let's get into this due diligence, right? And so, due diligence is kind of twofold in a way. When you think about it, you've got the idea of, these potential marketing opportunities themselves, but then also the advisors that are going to be involved and engaged, or want to be involved and engaged with these players, right? So where do you even start with that? How do you kind of start in this due diligence process so that you can ultimately protect yourself from being taken advantage of, either from an unscrupulous advisor or agent, or from a deal that really isn't, in line with kind of what you want to do long term?
Absolutely. It's so important. And again, they've done the due diligence of self at this point, and now they're going to have to start doing due diligence on the external business professionals and providers. And Luke, all of a sudden, these student athletes are going to have everybody coming at them. Everybody who comes at professional athletes today are going to be coming at D1, D2, D3 athletes all over the country. And the most important thing with due diligence, it's like the R of REAP. It's identifying who these people are and who do I need to hire. So when you have everybody from financial advisors to agents to lawyers to marketing reps, insurance salespeople, branding reps, all of these people will be coming at them. There'll be an onslaught of phone calls, and they're very, very good at making athletes feel secure and making athletes feel like they need them. I mean, that's what they do. And I'm not saying that they're all bad actors, as we heard Seth Greenberg talk about his concerns on our first webinar, but they may not have the athlete's best interest in mind. And they may have the best intention to, but they haven't worked with 18 to 21-year-olds before.
Right.
So they need to understand the roles, and that's what we do. We walk them through all the people who coming at them, what roles they play in life, hypothetically in their life if they were to hire them. And then based on their decision to participate or not and how they want to proceed, we help them decide who they really need to hire. Do they really need a marketing rep right now? And why? Do they really need a financial advisor right now? And why? So we make sure that they're educated on the types of people that will be coming at them, make sure that they're educated on who they need to hire. We instruct them in various due diligence workshops around advisor management system, which is key. And some of them may, if they have family and or outside advisors that have worked with young athletes before, may know to do this, but most don't. And it's critical in the time management of all of these different activities. And if they don't set up an advisor management process, they're really gonna, they're just gonna have too much time. They could spend all day, every day on phone calls. We also help them with first level screens. We teach them about why that's important, why getting as much public information as possible on these individuals is important. It's not just about fraud. As you know, I like to say, if you're reading about something fraudulent, it's too late. It's about getting to know these people. If they're trusting them with divulging anything from their personal goals to actually managing their money, they need to know as much as they can about this person. And again, there's no time to do that. Yeah. So we teach them how to do it in a time efficient way. We teach them how to use the information that they get, how to ask questions.
I didn't want to interrupt, but I want to make the analogy because I think I love that aspect. I love hearing about this due diligence piece because, when you think about it, these athletes are used to this screening, right? They watch film all the time. They train all the time. They have people who are scouting other teams all the time to give them that information so that on the sports field, they have the information and can make smart decisions based on what they see happening. So it only makes sense when we share that with them in that way that they can understand the importance of doing that. And you call it first level screen. I want to make sure that I highlight that, because that first level screen of understanding, who these people are that want to be around them, that's critical for the student athletes so that they're not taken advantage of. But it's also critical too, so that when they do come to their athletic administrators, with a question or something along those lines, they can share with them, hey, I've done some of this information, some of the screening already. Here's what I've found. Like, what are some of your thoughts? So I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just want to put a pin on that because I think that's such an important, concept to remember.
No, and it's great because it feeds right into what we always talk about, ongoing monitoring. To extend the analogy, watching the film, you think you've studied this person that you're up against on the field, on the court in the next game, and you think you know pretty well how that game's going to flow and understand their cadence and know how to guard them or move the ball against them. And if something happens that you're not expecting, you're able to pivot and you're able to study and understand why. It's exactly what they need to do with business professionals. Always continue the ongoing monitoring. And the more you know upfront, the more baseline information you have about this person, the more you know when things are changing. So all those stories about these advisors that, all of a sudden turn bad, that's not really what happens. They usually get in over their head, and it's a process and it takes time. And if you look back, you can always see where the red flags pop up. So I love the analogy. I love putting a pin on it. And it's, again, back to what we talk about. It's the same thing they're doing every day. It just happens to be that these are very complex issues of money and legal issues. And finally, on due diligence, we will help them with the actual interviews, what questions to ask, how to ask them. We've done, when we do the elite symposiums with the football and men's basketball players, we get them involved. We get them to participate in mock interviews with financial advisors. And they have to think on their feet. They have to think critically, like you talked about. And it's the best way to really teach them how to think when they're sitting across the table from one of these people that they might be hiring. So, I'd love to, in this subject of due diligence, from your expertise and your perspective, what about, due diligence around marketing and entrepreneurship?
Yeah, so, I think, so similarly, in one of the places that we kind of overlapped in presenting is with the NCAA and their elite symposiums. And we always talk about the decision-making aspect there. But when you think about decision-making, now it helps you when you're evaluating information to really understand name, image, and likeness opportunities. That's all a matter of evaluating this information, right? You want to evaluate the information on a particular opportunity from a marketing perspective by knowing what's the scope of services. So what do I have to do is going to be critically important, right? Especially as you mentioned earlier, Courtney, just the timing and this idea of potentially adding a third full-time job. Is this marketing agreement asking me to send a few tweets, or is this asking me to show up for various events and be present at certain, autograph signings or events or things like that that are going to take, more time? Evaluating the compensation, right? What am I getting compensated, and does the compensation align with what is being asked of me, what services I actually have to do? What is it saying about my intellectual property, right? Understanding, like, are they going to continue to, whatever the organization is that's bringing me in, will they continue to own or have rights to certain aspects of my intellectual property, of my brand, of my name, image, and likeness going forward? And if so, am I being compensated for that use in the future? It's also, kind of comes back to the brand authenticity, right? I mean, those are the few things that I mentioned deal with kind of the contractual parts of things. But generally speaking, like, does this align with my brand? I mean, is this something that aligns with, with kind of who I am? So that's something, again, that athletes are going to have to do due diligence on to really understand, these various aspects of a particular marketing opportunity. But the other piece that I think oftentimes gets overlooked, and Courtney, I know we've had this conversation before around entrepreneurship. And when the average person hears name, image, and likeness, they think of marketing deals, and they think of these big, Nike and Gatorade and all this kind of stuff. Well, there's also this entrepreneurship aspect that says, all right, now I'm going to have the ability as a student athlete, like other non-athlete students have had for years, to potentially, create a business around an idea that I have, a service that I want to offer, or a product that I might want to develop. And in doing that, there has to be some real understanding of, some of the corporate formalities that will come with that, understanding, am I doing this myself, or I'm bringing in partners? If I'm bringing in partners, the complexity of an operating agreement, bookkeeping, and how am I going to keep up with that? I mean, we talked about the idea of a third full-time job. This very well could be it in terms of, like, the entrepreneurship aspect. So student athletes have to understand all that comes with that, right? The accounting, insurance, managing liabilities. I mean, all of that comes with it. But at the same time, there will be students who might say, okay, I have this particular skill. I do want to be able to commercialize it in ways that I can, go do camps and clinics and coaching and things like that, where maybe I do need to set up an entity for that. Maybe there are some tax benefits, maybe there's some liability protections there, but there's going to be due diligence that has to happen to make sure that ultimately these athletes are protected and not getting out too far ahead of, their skis, as they say.
Absolutely.